So thanks everyone for joining. We'll give it like a minute as you wait for other people to join in before we get started.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi there.
Great. I think we should get started. We have a fun-filled 1 hour discussion. So welcome everyone. My name is Michelle Hassan. I am the Kenya Country Manager of BFA Global. And in this webinar, we're going to have like a fantastic team explaining what we've done the last year and our plans for the next couple of years. Next slide, please. So during the next hour, you'll hear some of our experiences from some of our steering committee members, but also you'll learn more about what our new programs will look like. So before we get started, a bit of kind of housekeeping rules. You'll notice that we are actually using a meeting function instead of a webinar. And this is to actually enable us to create what we call the community and create an engagement. So please use the chat function to introduce yourself and also bring questions. If you have any questions, actually just write it there and we'll be able to answer as we continue. So what are we going to see in the next 1 hour? Chris will come in and talk about, well, like overview of what the Jobtech Alliance is, as well as why we are doing what we're doing, when, and kind of like planning for the whole year. We have what we call enabling environment, which is kind of one of our key pillars. And Rolake, a fantastic lady from Nigeria, is going to come in and give a bit of experience from Jobberman and kind of like what challenges we'll be able to actually face. We'll come and talk about the Catalyst Jobtech Accelerator, and with Shayo explaining what his experience has been and a kind of bigger picture in terms of the Innovation Lab, with Paul leading on what kind of the key problems the Innovation Lab is going to focus on. And then finally, we'll end with like what's next and everything. So to kick us off, I'd like to actually welcome Chris to give us an overview of Jobtech.
Thanks so much, Michelle. I'm gonna give kind of an update for those who are new to the Jobtech Alliance, a little bit about what this is, why we care about it, what's happening next. Starting with what is Jobtech and why we care about it. Simply put, Jobtech is the future of work. Now, I know that the future of work is actually a more complicated term, fourth industrial revolution, all of that stuff. But when we think about global labor markets in the last 10 to 15 years, what has changed more than anything else or caused changes more than anything else? It's probably these guys. Now, we understand Jobtech to be platforms that connect people to opportunities that enable them to improve their livelihoods. You might look at some of these and say, I don't like these platforms. These aren't improving livelihoods. And others, you might say, these have been fantastic improvements to livelihoods. That's kind of the point. We believe that Jobtech platforms have the capacity to create new work opportunities that weren't previously possible. They have the capacity to improve quality of work for the users, sizes of income, the regularity of work. Jobtech platforms have the capacity to overcome traditional barriers to access for marginalized groups. But we know that these platforms can be bad as well as good. They can create bad quality work. They can exclude marginalized groups in whole new ways. And that's kind of why the Jobtech Alliance was set up. We've spent a lot of time thinking about what Jobtech really is in the African context. And my colleague is going to post into chat a very detailed taxonomy of what we see as being Jobtech on this continent. I won't therefore go into it in great depth, but just to summarize, we see kind of 5 buckets of platforms in our Jobtech taxonomy. The first of these is what we call platforms for offline work, where work is mediated online but delivered offline. Think gig matching or job matching platforms like Uber. Secondly, platforms for digitally delivered work, where the work is both mediated and delivered online. Think of online freelancing or micro work. Third, when we think about Africa and employment, a large part of employment is self-employment. So we see a big bucket around digital services for micro enterprises, things like e-commerce marketplaces, business management tools, that sort of thing. Fourthly, the part of EdTech related to the world of work. And finally, a bucket that we call digital tools for worker enablement. Things like portable benefits or digital platforms for unionization. Now, before I go any further, I have a poll, a question for people in this room. Do you know how many job tech platforms there are on this continent? Filling up. Pretty even spread. We'll give another 5 or 10 seconds. All right, I think we'll end the poll just there. A pretty even spread. Now, I'm glad to say that the mass of the community is correct. We have counted and mapped well over 400 job tech platforms on this continent. Oh, I think we're just sharing the results right now. But there's a pretty even spread, and this is kind of why the Jobtech Alliance exists. There isn't a lot of visibility into what is really happening in this job tech space. Now, while we think that technology is going to solve youth unemployment in Africa, the challenge is there's not a functioning ecosystem to make it really work. I explained earlier how job tech platforms could be good or could be bad. And as things are set up, there isn't really any ecosystem that is more likely to steer job tech on the good path versus the bad path. There's little understanding about what the sector is. That taxonomy I just presented is probably new to a lot of people on this call. We clearly don't have a perfect understanding of how many actors really are in this space. Let's also remember that it's a fundamentally difficult sector. Building businesses which are trying to connect a lack of demand for labor with an oversupply of quote unquote low quality workers is really difficult. This means we need a lot of innovation, but without a lot of community information sharing or knowledge of what works, we're not seeing the innovation that we need to. Moreover, there's a lack of funding, both in terms of investment capital and in terms of philanthropic money going into the space. Now, that might make things seem a little bit dour and stark, but we can look at this positively. Job tech is not yet ubiquitous on the African continent. There's a lot of platforms, but not a lot really achieving scale and not a lot really shifting labor markets yet. This means we have the potential to be ahead of the curve. In North America and Europe, one day to the next, everything was Uberfied and society was kind of left how to make sense of it or to make it not evil. In Africa, we have the potential to be ahead of the curve, to help platforms understand how to create as meaningful work as possible and to create viable and scalable businesses in that process. As the Jobtech Alliance, we care about making job tech, firstly, more viable at scale and scalable, creating strong businesses which have the potential to grow and create large amounts of jobs. We want those platforms to be providing work that is inclusive, reaching more vulnerable and excluded groups like women. And finally, making that work more impactful, ensuring that job tech platforms are delivering quality work for its users. Now, we really care about users and those jobs for the people on platforms. But as the Jobtech Alliance, we are taking this focus on the businesses, the innovators, the platforms themselves. We want to help those platforms to grow and create this quality work. And we've learned over time that in order to work effectively with platforms, we need to work at the ecosystem level. And that's why we're here in this ecosystem building initiative called the Jobtech Alliance. I just want to give you a little bit of context of where we are in the history and the future of the Jobtech Alliance right now. The Jobtech Alliance formally launched exactly 1 year ago, almost to that hour, 26th of October, 2021, we had a small informal get together with 41 participants from 35 different organizations to have a kind of chat about what we thought the Jobtech Alliance could be. Since then, just with some volunteer time, we've been regularly putting out learning content. We've had a few meetups and trying to slowly, organically build the community. Now, a year later, we've had over 350 people sign themselves up to the newsletter from 174 different institutions, mostly Jobtech platforms themselves. We're now, as of today, moving into phase 2 of the Jobtech Alliance. And this is made possible with generous funding from the Dutch Challenge Fund for Youth Employment, as well as the Conrad Hilton Foundation. And in a year, we hope to have grown on this immediate trajectory by having 1,000 members as part of our community and 100 platforms formally registered as platform members. And we'll be talking about what these things mean in a minute. We'll also have started accelerator activities with a bunch of different Jobtech platforms. Now, a couple of years after that, we want to start seeing some tangible outcomes. We want to see within a few years, hundreds of thousands of jobs being created by member platforms and creating those services so that they're reaching marginalized groups. We want those platforms to be building better businesses, leveraging the knowledge of those who have gone before. And we want those businesses to be receiving more funding. At the ecosystem level, we want everyone on this call to be able to answer that question at the outset very, very easily of how many platforms there are, as well as knowing what works and what doesn't in this space. Now, what does this really build up to? Within 10 years from now, we want our members to have created, did I miss out a number? I didn't. We deliberately left this number blank because we want the Jobtech Alliance to really focus on creating quality jobs. We know it's very easy as Jobtech platforms and in the youth employment space in Africa to say, we have 3 million users, we have 10 million users, when this could mean little more than having the name and the phone number of someone who registered. One thing that we'll be doing with the Jobtech Alliance for every platform member that signs up is asking them what creating and improving a job means for them. On an annual basis, we'll be following up to ask how many jobs you've created in that year. This first membership study is going to happen in Q1 next year. And one thing we'll be doing is encouraging lots of people to become platform members coming out of this conversation today. I'm now going to hand over to Michelle to talk a little bit about high level what the Jobtech Alliance is going to do and how it's going to do it.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I guess for everyone, the next question is like, how are we going to do that? So next slide, please. Great. So as Jobtech Alliance, what we have decided is to kind of do an all ecosystem approach and kind of like build an initiative through different models. But the aim is at least Jobtech Alliance, but also like kind of inclusive in this way. Next slide. So how do we do that? We see Jobtech Alliance working as an umbrella with kind of two main things. One, catalyzing the businesses within that whole ecosystem. And that can be done through either the Catalyst Jobtech Accelerator or the Innovation Lab, which we're going to discuss more about it. But also talking about like the enabling environment, which we see as the pillars that actually form the foundation of changing or moving the needle in this job tech area. And that can include things like research and community building, where we're going to share some of the insights we're seeing within the sector, but also have an opportunity for people to interact and communicate. Secondly, also thinking about funding. One of the key things we keep hearing also from the FinTech Center and seeing it here as well is like, how do we create and generate new funding in the sector? So we will try to kind of bring things up through either the circle of investors, which we're going to talk about it later. And then finally, thinking about the future. I think as the sector grows, it's important to also start thinking about what are the policy changes that we can be able to actually push in the different countries to enable job tech to be seen or actually continue to grow as well. I think this is one of the slides from one of the Jobtech Alliance members that we really love, and telling us like where we are right now is we are rewiring the system. There's not been a platforms in the whole Africa, but how are we actually enabling that? I think we have an opportunity right now to say, we don't have the cables yet. Can the Jobtech Alliance be the cabling to enable all these platforms in the continent to actually help and continue to grow? So I'm going to take it back again to Chris to actually say who is driving.
Thanks, Michelle. So there's a few different answers to the who question of the Jobtech Alliance. Now, we're using a systems change process that is called collective action. One part of it is this is a backbone. Think of the backbone as the work of these, and that's where Mercy Corps and BFA Global are playing this role in helping to drive things forward. We're guided by a steering group of sector leads from the Jobtech space that has evolved a little bit over time, but has been incredibly valuable in helping to make sure that we're doing the right things and in the right way. In addition to this, there'll be a whole bunch of different actors who are implementing or doing different things as part of this space. But what the Jobtech Alliance really is these guys. It's you guys who are from platforms joining today. Primarily, we are a membership-based organization, and what we're trying to launch today is a more formal structure of membership. There's two levels of this. The first we call platform members. This is very simple. It's for Jobtech platforms. And we'll be talking a little bit about what you get from being a member and why you should sign up later. But we hope this to be a representative group where Jobtech platforms can help to steer the agenda and collaborate, communicate, and work out how to grow employment in the sector together. The second of our membership categories is called community members. That's essentially everyone who is on this call. Any individuals interested in Jobtech, including people within startups, people within funders or investors, people within accelerators and incubators, researchers, policymakers, government, multilaterals, training institutes, and anyone else who cares about Jobtech, you're welcome to join the Jobtech community. So we'll be talking a little bit more about how to sign up and register later. But we want to kick off the conversation of really diving into what we are going to be doing as the Jobtech Alliance, where we'll dive into this enabling environment theme that Michelle was going to talk, was pointing towards. To set the scene, we're going to hear from a seasoned Jobtech entrepreneur who is sitting right next to me, Relaka Rasije, who recently was the CEO of Jobberman Nigeria, and even more recently was at the Global Career Company. And she's going to share some of her experiences in the Jobtech space.
Thank you, Chris. Hope you guys can see me. Very happy to be here and to see you all in real life finally in Nairobi. So as Chris said, I'll be talking a little bit about my experiences in the Jobtech space and the challenges I found with the enabling environments and why we need the Jobtech Alliance. So I came into Jobberman in January 2021 as CEO, and I was there for a year. And then this year I worked as acting managing director of Careers in Africa company, which is part of the Global Careers Company. And when I was in both roles, what I noticed that was really strange was that there wasn't really any support, no industry association or any sort of network that existed to support one another in this really massive industry across Africa. And luckily, when I came into Jobberman's part of a group company called Rome. And luckily for me, I had partners in Kenya and in Ghana and in Uganda. And also Rome also has the parent company is Ringier, based out of Switzerland. So I had lots of learnings from job companies in other markets due to Jobberman being part of this larger structure. So I was quite lucky. And the business, has existed for a very long time, so was able to stand on the shoulders of giants over many years, leveraging technology from the other businesses across Africa, but also in Europe. So Rome also has a jobs business in Poland and also in Ghana. So that was definitely a competitive advantage and really, really useful. But something I noticed sitting in Nigeria and managing the business in Nigeria was that there wasn't really anyone else in the space in Nigeria who I could pick up the phone and chat to, or there wasn't any kind of events going on. And, coming into this space from renewable energy, very different sector, where there's Gogla, which is Pan-African, supporting everyone in the solar and renewable energy space with technical knowledge, information about policies, networking opportunities, investment opportunities. And then even in Nigeria, there's the Renewable Energy Association, and several other associations actually for renewable energy, where we would get together networking events. I was managing MCOPA at the time in Nigeria, and would trade ideas to competitors like Evox and D-Lights. And whilst we were competitors, there was a large space where we could actually still trade several ideas, several contacts, work together, help each other grow the overall size of the pie, so to say, without stepping on each other's toes. So definitely coming into Jobtech at Jobberman, that was something I noticed that was quite missing and quite strange. So fast forward to the end of 2021, when I'd been at Jobberman for about 12 months, and I was invited to Dubai by the Rewired Conference and the United Nations Generation Unlimited Association, and that's where I met Chris. And that was a great event where there was so many entrepreneurs in the job tech space from not only Africa, but India, really from across the world. And there were so many ideas being thrown out. And we all have one single goal, which is providing more jobs or supporting people to provide more jobs. And many of us have a goal of reducing youth unemployment. So of course, many players in the space are focused purely on profit, but there are a good portion of players in the space who are very interested in the impact side. So it really confused me. We're all here trying to achieve this impact with all these large foundations and donors. With Jobberman, we had a very large partnership with the Mastercard Foundation to place 3 million people in jobs within 5 years, and to train up 5 million people in Nigeria in soft skills training. Why not work more with other players and help each other learn what's actually working and help each other achieve our goals? So that was my experience with Jobberman, and then moving into the Global Career Company this year, I kind of noticed the same thing. And after meeting Chris in December 2021, joined the Alliance, and it was really a breath of fresh air to get to meet Shai, who's also the Leadership Council, Paul, and really, it was a breath of fresh air to kind of just have people who've been going through the same issues as you and understand the same issues. Don't think I have too much time, but I did want to touch on one of the problems and challenges that I see as really common across the different players, and that's the problem of data. Getting the data, verifying the data, and making sure it's true. I mean, there's so many other problems we could talk about, the entire technology piece, about product, about UI UX, about applicant tracking systems. There's so much we could talk about, but I'd just like to focus on data. Chris started off by saying, hey, he's missed out that number on purpose of the number of jobs we're aiming to create. And at Jobberman, we had 60,000 companies registered and 3 million job seekers registered. But yes, Chris is right. How many of those registered users are actually active, and how can we get better data to really track where the need is, where the opportunity is, both for the job seeker, but also for the clients that we're serving, and the clients who are more often than not the ones who actually provide revenue to the business. So that's one common problem that I've seen across the space, and so with 90 people on the call now, and I think all the other entrepreneurs on this call, leaders of various startups in the space, will probably identify with that issue. So yeah, really pleased and honored to be part of the council and excited about this space too, and all the work ahead. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks so much, Rolake. So I'm going to just briefly explain some of the things to expect from the next couple of years in this enabling environment part of our work. Firstly, expect knowledge. We've been putting out a monthly newsletter for the last year. Expect more, much more, and much better content coming out. This is really going to focus on startup write-ups, lessons learned of what worked and didn't work. Rolake was talking about UI, UX, and how this can work in the job tech space, and we have some content coming out on this very theme next week. In addition, there'll be deeper research, some of those big data questions that Rolake was talking about. At the moment, we're doing some landscape scans to try and understand the different business models that exist in job tech across the continent, which should come out by the end of the year. We're going to do that first member study in Q1 next year. And we're also working with the ILO, International Labour Organization, and CFYA, among others, to create a tool to help platforms measure the quality of work that they're delivering. But the critical point is that this is what we know, but there's a lot that we don't know. And there's a lot that we don't know about what you as members of the community want and care about. So we will be consistently soliciting requests for you to both tell us what you want to learn about and for you to share your learnings. So this really will be a community generated body of knowledge. We're also going to try and build this community, building some of what Paul calls the connective tissue between different actors. Our socials went live in the last month or so, so please do follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter and join the conversation. I think we're posting those in chat right now. We'll be having regular webinars where we can talk through tricky issues. One thing that we're definitely going to establish, and we actually have a little poll here, because we just can't decide, is we want to set up a group, and this is just for job tech platforms, to share how you would most want to collaborate with other actors. We've had a bit of a WhatsApp group that has some informal usage over the last year, and it is exactly the feedback we've got so far, 50-50. This is exactly what we didn't want, but we thought would be inevitable. All of the feedback we've got is exactly split between people who want Slack and WhatsApp. We'll have to come up with a solution, but we want to make sure that there is a space that is safe for entrepreneurs to share what they've learned with different entrepreneurs. We've had some great conversations over the course of the last year, and we're going to increase that quantity of conversations. We also will be having more meetups. We're going to have meetups in both Nairobi and Lagos over the course of the next month. On Wednesday next week in the newsletter, we'll be talking a little bit about them. And we will be over time establishing some sub-communities that we've had requests for. One around researchers. That will happen at some point in 2023. And then there is a particular interest in the refugee response community about understanding what job tech for refugees looks like. Again, we want to be driven by interests of the community, and we've been told that we should host an annual job tech conference. That's not something we have budget for right now, but if there are any donors on the call, please let us know, and this could be something to plan for in 2023. Almost finishing off, we will be looking at the big funding question. We, through BFA's Circle of Investors, will be trying to increase interest in the job tech space from investors. But we recognize the role that the philanthropic sector will have to play in this space. And we'll be hosting roundtables between the VC and the philanthropic world to understand how we can get more money into this very important space. We'll be hosting investor and funder networking events, as well as, if you are a platform member, let us know and we'll share in our newsletter about any fundraising asks that you have. As Michelle mentioned, we will be working on things like policy as we see themes emerging. So let us know if you think there are policy issues that we should be focusing on. We'll respond to the needs and asks of the community. Now, just before I hand over, I'm going to encourage you to sign up as platform members and community members. You can do this at any time over the course of the next month. For platform members, what you get is visibility. We want to really showcase who are members of the Jobtech Alliance community. We want to push access to funding and other opportunities your way. Invite you to join a part of this peer learning and collaboration community. You'll gain access to the acceleration services that we'll be talking about any second. And we really want members to be driving this agenda of what the Jobtech Alliance community does. This comes in addition to all of the community membership benefits, so the monthly newsletter, invitations to events, and we will be setting up specific groups. Just to let you know, for those who have already registered or already signed up to the newsletter, we'll be converting over your signups over the next couple of days, and we'll send out emails tomorrow and Friday, letting you know about what to do. But that's just some of the flags I wanted to make. We have a beautiful new website, went live about 1 hour ago, that you should check out. And you'll find the membership registration information there. But I'm going to hand over now to Michelle to talk about the Catalyst Jobtech Accelerator.
Thanks, Chris. Right. And you can possibly put the next slide. I guess now we're going to dig deeper into the kind of the two programs we want to talk about in terms of helping the platforms to grow. In this section, I'll talk about the Catalyst Jobtech Accelerator. And I think the quick question is like, what is the Catalyst Fund? So a bit of background about Catalyst Fund. It's an accelerator program that has been around for about 7 years now. And in that period, we have accelerated about 61 companies across the fintech space. They have just gotten another additional 10 new companies recently, now in the kind of climate resilience space as well. Through the program, we've been able to reach 14 million low-income earners, but also we have a big circle of investors where about 118 of them are in Africa, whereas globally we have about more than 150. And with the Catalyst Fund, what we do, we offer venture building support to our early stage startups. And we already have like an NPS of about 95 among all of them. And the startups have been able to accelerate, have actually been able to raise more money. As of a couple of months ago, we saw about $56 million among those 61 companies. And we have a high survival rate of about 88%. That's kind of like a big picture, everything. So next slide. So when we say what do we offer as Catalyst, both the fund and accelerator, what do we offer to the digital platforms? When you join the accelerator, we are offering a bespoke venture building time with a team of dedicated builders and operators, and plugging in on a bigger network of the BFA team, be able to actually spend time with you. And I'll dig deeper more in the next slide. We're going to offer you patient capital, understandably, because it's challenging at being an early stage startups in a new space. How are you able to navigate the ins and outs on everything, but also being able to test out new ideas? So we're offering that capital to be able to analyze that. And then definitely giving you access to the 100+ global investors that we already have in our circle. So to dig deeper a bit on the venture building support, next slide. When we talk about this, we think about acceleration for about 6 months, and we go deeper into like these sectors. So we can take you through like understanding your customer, which can either be the platform users or the end users as well, understanding how they actually use, going and understanding your platform and looking at the UI, UX, how are people interacting with it, how is the flow and everything. But understanding also like how do you market as a business and create sales as you're continuing, and things like product. Do you want to have a new innovation? We've had to test out new, in terms of helping new platforms think about how do you create revenue, for example, and how the different methods are able to do that. But I think as the theme we've mentioned is data is a key thing. So we can help you think about how do you collect data, what type of data is important. And I think there's one question about decent work is just encouraging, like, how do you track that you're offering decent work on your platform? We're able to do that. But given that these are startups, of course, the next question is like, how can I be able to invest and being able to go to the next step? So we will be able to support you and take you through in terms of investment readiness and help you do that as well. Next slide. So to help with that, I actually want to invite Shayo to talk a little bit about the company Kandua, who was part of our acceleration program recently, but also to give his experience, but also his experience in the job tech space. Shayo, do you want to take over?
Thank you very much. Yeah, if I can just introduce Kandua, and then I'll talk a little bit about my experience with the Catalyst Fund, as well as my experience with the Jobtech Alliance to date. So Kandua really exists to shorten the distance between having a skill and making a living from it. So we're really kind of digitizing the kind of service business. And that can be your plumber, your carpenter, your electrician, whoever it is really that kind of is delivering their services offsite. And our jobs is to provide that kind of technology infrastructure to help the markets find more customers and to operate, whether it's kind of how they manage their customers or how they manage their businesses. We really see it as our mission of just building the technology infrastructure around them to grow. And we've been doing this a while and have been around the block a few times and in lots of different accelerators and programs. And I think the thing that's always meaningful for me and why we're very attracted to the Jobtech Alliance and the Catalyst Fund actually is the, inherent in what we do is the impact side of it, of how we help small businesses grow, how we enable youth employment through the growth of these small businesses and also the sustainability of these small businesses. And then there's the kind of other side, which I don't think they're actually separate sides, but the wider world seems to is, how do you build great technology products? How do you build internal cultures that attract the most talented people to work on the hardest problems and build really world-class stuff? And in my experience kind of with Kandua, I've always found that there's been a separation of those worlds. And, I think I really don't, still today, actually don't really know how to navigate it because, I want to make great impact and then I want to make really incredible products. And the thing that both the Catalyst Fund and the Jobtech Alliance has been doing, which I really love, is kind of saying that let's put those two worlds together. Let's let them learn how to talk to each other. Let them understand the languages that, when I'm talking to, I don't know, a philanthropic funder or a impact investor, I know how to speak the language. And because we've been talking to each other in forums like the Jobtech Alliance, in forums like, the Catalyst Fund Accelerator, and we're able to actually meet each other in the right space. So the Jobtech Alliance's focus on startups as the core members is something I just really relate to, and always happy to contribute to and help. Now, to speak very specifically about my experience with the Catalyst Fund Accelerator, I think I've been involved in a fair amount of these things, and the Catalyst Fund is by far the best. It's like kind of hands down. There's no kind of getting around it. They're just the best at what they do. Why are they the best at what they do? I believe they're founder-led. So they allow founders to take control of the program. You'll all do a deep dive and a assessment of, hey, what do you need? And just like we went through now, here's all the things we can offer. Where do you think we can be useful? But it's very founder-led, and you kind of create your own adventure. And I think that is the first thing that just makes it kind of a joy to deal with, because you're not kind of pigeoned into a hole of what people think you are, or what they want you to be. And you can actually say, okay, hey, this is where I think I need help. And you have conversations. They'll say, what about this? What about this? And you really kind of find that they're, they let the founders lead. And to anyone thinking, I don't know how many startups are in the chat today, but to anyone thinking about that, I'd encourage you to have a very hard think about what it is you want, so that you can be very clear and get the best out of them, because they will let you lead, which also means that, you have to do that. And then the second thing is that they have domain expertise. So as we were just seeing there, you go into those different, whether it's user testing and UX to investor support and investor readiness to marketing, et cetera, et cetera. They have these kind of domain experts that come and sit within your team. So it's almost like adding a lot of capability into your team, which for us at the time, I remember exactly when we did it, it was kind of a godsend at that time. It was kind of some resources we needed that we probably couldn't have afforded. And they just, and yeah, not to mention they're all really good people. So they were a good vibe to have in the team. And they acted as an extension of our team working towards new products. And the last thing I would say, and maybe just on that, I think, what we worked on then, we were in the Catalyst Fund Accelerator in June 21. What we worked on primarily then was really around how we integrate a single player mode into our platform. So a tool that allowed the service providers to run their businesses independent of the jobs they got from our platform. And we launched that just 6 months ago. And yeah, it's kind of a booming product. And I think the work that we did with them on the research, on the user testing, on the user experience, was the kernel of what is kind of going to become a really big product for us. So, I think there's actually tangible results that come out of that, which I can't say really for any other program I've been a part of. And then lastly, there's a strong community. So, of which I hope the Jobtech Alliance and the startups within there will join. But I was in London maybe a month or maybe 2 months, I don't know time, 2 months ago. And we kind of had the summit where a ton of the founders were put together. You guys exchange ideas, exchange thoughts, and it's really high quality people, and then you're introduced to investors. So the community aspect, and call it the post-investment process of kind of having that community, I think is really strong as well. And I'm still really good friends with a lot of the people I worked with at the Catalyst Fund. So my testament is really about it being founder-led, access to domain experts, and a strong community, even after the fact, that you can count on. And this marriage between the Catalyst Fund and the Jobtech Alliance is hopefully the beginning of a marriage between people who want to build great stuff and make impact.
Great, thanks, Shayo. So I guess moving on, what does that mean for Jobtech Alliance? So in the next 3 years, we are going to accelerate 8 companies, 4 in the first cohort and the next cohort in about a year from now. And we're looking at these 10 countries, Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Senegal, Ethiopia, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Sudan, and South Sudan. If you're in those countries and you're a platform, then early stage platform, please apply. But given what our expertise are, we'll start actually working with the countries we've highlighted in teal, being Kenya, Uganda, Nigeria, Senegal, and Ethiopia, with the hope that we'll be able to go to the other countries in the next cohort. So what are we looking for in case you want to apply? Definitely innovation is a key thing. We want something new and interesting and a product that we actually be able to test out different models. Being able to kind of do inclusion and scale as part of Jobtech Alliance is key. Thinking about if the grant money is small grant money, but if we're able to give you what additionality can actually bring to your company, if in those 10 countries, definitely it works. Our focus is early stage. So it really means at least you need to have a product, an MVP product at least, and have some few customers. And then we can be able actually to help with that. If you're older grower stage, don't worry, the lab, and Chris will talk a lot about it, you have an opportunity to work there. But given that also we want to build this whole ecosystem and learning agenda, we have a learning potential of what new things are we learning and how we're able to actually move to the next step. So kind of that's the accelerator. So talking more about the kind of Jobtech Innovation Lab, I'd like to welcome Paul Broloff, who's the CEO and co-founder of Shortlist and part of our steering committee, to kind of just set the scene about the lab and the challenges that are in the ecosystem. Paul, you want to go ahead?
Great, thanks, Michelle. And great to see everybody. It's great to be here and see so many friends on this call. I'm the CEO of Shortlist, and we're a tech-enabled executive search firm and youth employment accelerator working across Africa and based in Nairobi. It's been really fun to be part of the steering committee of the Jobtech Alliance for the last year plus, and really excited to be part of this community. As Rolake mentioned, building job tech businesses can be lonely, and I'm hopeful this community can continue growing into a great hub for all of us to learn, connect, and build some really great businesses. So thanks to everyone for your work in setting this up, and happy first birthday. Job tech's obviously at a very exciting moment, and there's a number of forces that are shaping new opportunities. Training and content is getting democratized, creating a whole bunch of different ways people can learn new skills anywhere and at really low cost. Distributed and remote work is decoupling jobs from physical locations, and this is opening up a whole new world of jobs people can access without necessarily moving or emigrating. Entirely new industries are springing up around tech, the digital economy, around climate, clean energy, and that's poised to create millions of jobs in Africa over the next decade. And of course, there's more platforms by the day. I've been so excited to see all the new entrepreneurs entering the space, working on really exciting, innovative ideas. Let's be honest, though, we're at a very early stage, and we're all still pretty early in figuring out how to unlock this opportunity, particularly the job tech ecosystem in Africa. There's a lot of new territory and new ideas to explore, a lot of ideas to try out. I'm particularly excited about seeing more experiments on how to integrate training into real world work experiences. I'm hoping to see more integration of upskilling into job matching platforms, more ways of equipping young people with the tools to approach their job search, navigate their careers, more bridges built between local talent pools and global work opportunities. And I think this really points to the importance of the innovation lab. I think this innovation lab can be a starting point to help learn and prove out what different things might work. And ideally working with some of the people on this call, people who are already working and innovating in this space. And so I think can be some of the best placed actors to drive this experimentation. Whenever we talk about jobs and employment in Africa, the numbers and scale can be really daunting. There are hundreds of millions of Africans entering the workforce in the next decade, and different markets are facing double-digit unemployment, which could get worse. When you hear big numbers like this, it's really tempting to jump immediately to big targets. And of course, there's big foundations, enterprises that love to set very lofty targets in the tens of millions, and that's great. Eventually, we need to get there. I do worry that sometimes that can be distracting and obscure the reality that the road to these big numbers is paved with a lot of small experiments. And to get to these big numbers, we're going to need to innovate and do things a bit differently. And doing things differently doesn't start in the tens of millions. It starts with pilots and proofs of concept and MVPs and experiment. And there's not a lot of places, as many people on this call know. I know many of the entrepreneurs on this call I talk to quite regularly who want to try new things and lack the space or the resources to try that. Hopefully, the Innovation Lab can be one of those answers and can provide some of, for some folks, the money, space, resources to drive some of these experiments. And we're not going to create 1 million jobs in year one. Some of these experiments might be hundreds of jobs or even tens of jobs, but the hope is that these small initial lessons and innovations can ripple out to drive much bigger sector change over time. So really excited to see what this innovation lab can become. And then of course, personally, just very excited to be part of this and see what we all can do together. Thanks so much. I think I'll turn it back to Michelle and Chris.
Thanks, Paul. I'm going to just explain this last part of the presentation. We've kind of gone through the enabling environment. We've talked about the Catalyst Job Tech Accelerator, and this is the last kind of new work stream that we want to brief people on it. I think it responds to some of the questions coming in. Whereas the Catalyst Job Tech Accelerator was really focused on those kind of early stage businesses, really helping to build the foundations of those businesses in the job tech space. As the Job Tech Innovation Lab, we have a bit more flexibility and a wider scope. What we're trying to do is help platforms to achieve exactly what we're trying to achieve as the Jobtech Alliance: greater scale, greater inclusivity, and greater impact or quality of work. This could mean helping platforms to do things like develop new products or services. It could be about helping platforms to enhance their products, their operations or marketing in order to do things like better deliver services, reach new markets, or remove barriers to access for marginalized groups. We're particularly interested in young women and refugees as two populations. It could be about helping platforms to expand to new markets, particularly underserved markets. But again, it could be much, much more. We want to be driven by platforms, and where platforms see the opportunity for scale, inclusivity, and impact. So you might have entirely different ways that we should be working together. How do we do it? We, with support from the Challenge Fund for Youth Employment, will be working with at least 20 platforms over the course of the next few years with what we call sprint support packages. So we're looking at these individual sprints, which we would co-design with you. Each sprint will vary based on the needs of the platform. It will include a combination of support from our venture building team to think through what that sprint could or should be, technical assistance of the same team that we were talking about, and it's the same team that Michelle was talking about with the domain expertise and things like market research, product management, engineering, or indeed local market insights as required. We have a small amount of grant capital, and this really is small amounts to kind of test out these new things or de-risk high-risk endeavors. We're going to be connecting our partners to investors where they need it, connect them to mentors where they need it, and we always will be seeking to generate some insights that could be shared to the wider community. This isn't taking your unique IP or all of the details of the sprint that we'd be doing with you, but learning what can be shared with the rest of the ecosystem that will help drive everyone forward. I want to give a few examples to make this a bit more tangible. Let's talk about Socials, a hypothetical influencer platform that has achieved product market fit in Nigeria. They connect a huge amount of influencers to work, and they're looking to expand into Nigeria, but they don't understand the Francophone market. In that case, maybe we would co-develop a sprint around market expansion support. Maybe this involves 10 days of support from a market expansion expert to help playbook the business, to better enable it to expand into new markets, as well as some support from a Senegalese market expert to understand how the product needs to be adapted for local realities. Maybe that platform, and I realize I missed out one thing here, we can also provide some management support. We know that a lot of time there's just a difficulty in capacity to deliver, particularly for earlier stage companies. So maybe this would include 4 weeks of a management consultant to help deliver on this go-to-market pilot. Maybe we contribute a small amount to de-risk that expansion as well. Again, we would be wanting to learn some things about this that we could share with the wider community. We wouldn't share the unique IP about what an influencer platform looks like in its expansion into the Francophone market, but we would aim to share some generalizable learnings with the wider community. Another example would be Buy On Online, a hypothetical e-commerce marketplace that enables micro-enterprises to sell online. Their problem is that 90% of their users are men, and most of the women on the platform are earning less than $100 a month. Maybe in this case, we co-design a sprint around increasing sales for women on that platform, because that makes business sense, as well as enhancing the inclusivity of their platform. Maybe this sprint involves 20 days of a product manager with a product design expert with a background in fintech that would work with the platform to redesign their user experience for women, as well as 8 days of a marketing expert to help launch a female-friendly marketing campaign. And maybe we contribute $25,000 to help with this initial drive. We would again seek to learn or share some generalizable lessons about how to increase participation of female users on Jobtech platforms. Now, just to point out that all of our sprints need to have a few things. One, they need to make business sense. This is not a grant giving endeavor that is just giving people cash in order to give us jobs. We want to help businesses to improve their products and services in a way that is sustainable and scalable in a longer term. Also in ways that measurably create or improve jobs for their users. And in ways that offer these positive externalities to the ecosystem. We want to learn something that we can share with other members of the ecosystem. The eligibility is very similar to what Michelle was talking about. It needs to fit into our taxonomy that was shared at the beginning of being a job tech platform. We have a bit more flexibility of stage. We're more likely to be suitable for more established platforms who have worked out what their core product is, but see opportunities for greater scale, impact, or inclusivity. We're based on the funding that we have, we're covering initially the same 10 markets. Now, just to point out, we hope to expand offering over time, but the funding that we have enables us to work in just these 10 markets. But hopefully we do a good job, and hopefully that over time we'll be able to expand those focus areas. And we want to work on kind of, yeah, as I said, individual sprints that can help the platform to move forward. So I'll hand back to Michelle to close us off with some what's next and immediate calls to action.
Thanks, Chris. So for the last remaining 4 minutes, we can discuss like what's next. I'm sure like these are interesting programs. What should I do? As mentioned, our website is live. So please go to the website and we have, based on what we're talking about and our criteria, you can apply if you're a platform either through the Jobtech Accelerator or the Innovation Lab. And I think my colleague has actually posted the link on the chat. And the aim is, I think now it is live, continue applying and we'll continue from doing more there. And we'll be checking it at least every day, and there's feedback, then we'll be able to call you and have a conversation about the fit to the companies. Next slide. So I guess there's been a lot of things, we've just talked about this in the last hour. So kind of just reminding you what our call to action is. If you're a platform, please register to be a platform member. If you're a community or just want to learn more about Jobtech as an area, please register as a community member. Please apply if you're a platform in Africa and among the 10 countries we've talked about to be enabled to actually help you through acceleration. And then finally, we've shared with our social, please share that. But also, if you know any platforms who have not been able to come to this event today, please share the request with them so that they're able to apply for this program. So in terms of next steps is there will be a follow-up email in the next 48 hours with the slides and the recording, as well as all the links we've shared in the chat. But also, again, please register so that we have a newsletter coming out next week on Wednesday. So at least if you are part of a community member, then you'll be able to receive it. And then we're going and in the process of planning meetups in Nairobi in November, and I think some as well in Lagos. So kind of like just ensuring that we're continuing to grow as well. Yeah, so I guess thank you so much all. I think we are just on time for coming to the launch of Jobtech Accelerator, and we're hopefully and excited about this new year. We're hoping to come back in a year from now and say, we have targeted and we've reached X number of people, and possibly be able to answer the X that Chris has mentioned earlier and grow this whole community. So yeah, thank you so much and wish you all the best. Great.